Ravens Nation, welcome in and happy Purple Friday. So good to be with you for this Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. It is Friday, September 20th. And partner, what better way than to help preview Ravens Cowboys coming up week 3 in Dallas than going to a man who really needs no introduction for those of you who have been around the sports media landscape. Longtime ESPN reporter, now with Fox Sports. He will be the sideline reporter of Ravens and Cowboys coming up at 4:25 in Dallas, Texas. He is none other than Tom Rinaldi, and making his debut here inside the vault is Tom himself. Tom, so good to be with you, and thanks for carving out some time for us this week.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys. Great to be with you, Bobby and Sarah.
Absolutely. And Sarah, by the way, obviously
first time meeting you, Tom. Appreciate you. I know you and Bobby go back a little bit. He sings your praises, so I'm so pleasured to meet you today.
Well, let's try to limit the damage, Bobby. Let's stay truthful and honest with the audience, okay?
We'll do our best. Absolutely. And I know you got to be fired up for this one. I think the fact that the Ravens are 0-2 makes it maybe a little bit sweeter nationally in terms of the interest surrounding it. We know there's going to be an interest level with the quarterbacks. We know there's always going to be an interest level with the team that you and your Fox crew have seen here the first couple of weeks in the Cowboys. As you take a look at this matchup from 1,000 feet up, what are some of your thoughts going into it?
Listen, when we initially get our schedule and we see what the doubleheader selections look like, and we knew that week 3 we would have this game, I mean, everybody salivated exactly for the reason that you said it, Bobby, because of the quarterback matchup, because of 2 Super Bowl aspirants with legitimacy behind them for their pushes through the postseason. But I don't think anybody thought Baltimore would be in the situation that it's in, which really requires context, as in the context that you guys know, or that Dallas would be coming off the game that it went through against the Saints, which kind of like, as one of the coaches said to us this week in our meetings, was just kind of like a buzzsaw. So with that, I think you have maybe a face mask call and a toe on the line away from a very different start to the season in Baltimore. And you have the Cowboys having to answer some questions they didn't foresee answering after looking so good in Cleveland, and a team that's been so dominant at home, struggling so much against the Saints.
So, Tom, you said it really well. We obviously, covering the Ravens daily, we know the context behind the Ravens starting 0-2. Can you give us some more context for the Cowboys and maybe kind of like the state of what's going on in their facility right now, coming off of really a stunning way that they lost?
I think this is one of the reasons why we love the NFL as much as we do, right? I'm sure you guys have gone through the game. You've heard the game, right? Where people love to take the schedule out before a single snap's ever been conducted, and go through and count wins and projected wins and losses based on the schedule. I think the Saints are a great antidote to that approach right now. I mean, they have been beyond a revelation and beyond dominant. So if you're the Cowboys, I think they're caught between 2 things, right? One, was that just a one-off of a team absolutely peaking, or was it revealing of some more cracks, some more issues than we thought we had, or is it a blend of both? I think through some of our meetings, I think the blend is probably the answer. And obviously both teams look at this as a pretty essential get-right game for them. 15 games to go, no matter what, we understand that. But it's a get-right game for each side.
Tom, you know the quarterbacks are going to be dissected and overanalyzed and talked about ad nauseum leading up to this one, and for good reason. Obviously, Dak made headlines right before the season began, kind of resetting the market. We know who Lamar is at this point in his career as a reigning MVP, but also just hasn't been able to overcome some of his team's shortcomings through a couple weeks, as you've sort of alluded to. So as you take a look at, it's always an indirect matchup, right, between the quarterbacks. They're not actually going to be going up against one another physically. But as you take a look at that matchup, boy, this is going to be as advertised, don't you think?
I do. And listen, I think for both, right, both know that they're going to have to do as well as they can through a regular season to get to the postseason. But both have shown that they can absolutely shine and be entirely elite in a regular season. So they occupy this same space of do it really well now, but you really have to do it later. in the postseason in ways that perhaps you haven't fully shown or proven anywhere that matches what you've done in the regular season. One of the reasons why there's a lot of reasons why I feel like I wish we had the Ravens a little more often. Obviously, with the conference that we cover, typically we don't. But I've had the chance to be around Lamar since early in his Louisville days, and when he became such a revelation for the Heisman, and to see him grow and to see him build the career and the life that he's had, also to see him evolve not only as a player but as a leader within that locker room, I think has been a wonderful thing. And that's one of the great things about covering the college game too, guys, is you get to see these young men who then have the opportunity to enter their professional lives and careers, have families, build their paths forward. And it's a really, really gratifying thing. It's a cool thing to have been a part of it early on. And I think Lamar bears that out. He's just an extraordinary talent.
I can't imagine what that's like for you. I remember when Lamar was drafted and how young he looked. And now I look at him and going into year 7 and he's a man now, right? He's a completely different, he's just grown into being a man. Whereas that was just his rookie year, but you saw him at Louisville. So what a journey that's probably been for you to go from that and now to see him in year 7. Did you get to, as part of it, do you interview him as getting ready for the game? Do you get one-on-one with him?
Aaron Andrews is planning to do a sit down with him for our pregame show. I'll have a chance to chat with him a little bit on the field pregame. Yeah. I did a sit down with him last year for Fox NFL Sunday, our pregame show. But Sarah, to your point about, he's sort of a full grown man now. I'll never forget when I saw him after the draft process, after Baltimore drafted him, the weight that he had put on in that short period of time, the muscle and the bulk from when I had last seen him, which was, ending his collegiate career. I did a double take and I said that right to him. I said, well, I can't believe your frame right now. And he just laughed and laughed, gave me a hug, and he was just like, yeah. Putting in the work. I was like, wow. Yeah. How about getting some sleep too? Because he just looked like such a different person physically. And he's just, again, he's had such an amazing career. And now he seeks that ring like all these guys chase, like Dak chases, to Bobby's point. They don't face off against each other directly, but they're on parallel tracks in terms of challenge.
Well, you got me thinking now about full circle here for Lamar, because he shed some of that weight this offseason and kind of tried to get back to, tried to get back to his former self in terms of physique. Right. And it was a huge talking point of the offseason, as you well know. And goodness gracious, thank goodness he did it, because he's been running for his life at times here with some breakdowns and some inconsistency as they try to figure out through 2 early weeks what this offensive line, particularly on the right-hand side, looks like moving forward, Tom. So as you kind of sink your teeth into this matchup in the trenches, are you aware of what's taking place here and just how controversial this is, given what they've lost in the offseason on that right-hand side?
Listen, you lose those veterans, and you lose a number of those veterans on the line, like you said, on the right side, and it's going to be a work in progress, right? We've had the chance to talk to coaches. We talked to Coach Harbaugh today, and he's honest about that, saying, we know that that's a work in progress. We know we have to block better, but we also know we need to be better in these other phases as well. Where the team is in week 3 is not where you hope the team is going to be come late November and December, when you hope to be playing meaningful games and in that playoff hunt. But there's no doubt that who is going to really emerge as a pillar, as someone who can step into a veteran spot, provide stability. Listen, you're blessed to have Lamar. You might want to say run for his life, but there's few guys who you'd ever want to run for their lives more than Lamar, because of how electrifying he is, right? There's also this tricky balance you guys have. So you want to let Lamar be Lamar, but then there's sort of a throng that's saying, hey, we went and we got Henry. How come Henry isn't getting more touches? He didn't get there were many touches in week 1. Then we saw him get some touches in week 2. He started to develop some rhythm. finding that balance is going to be a work in progress early in the season. Trying to find it against Dallas with Micah and that crew, that's why we watch.
That's been like the two buzzwords is offensive identity. That's what everybody's been talking about.
I heard that. I saw that. Yep.
What did they tell you about offensive identity with Lamar and Derrick Henry? Did you ask specifically about those two?
Well, so I thought it was interesting. I did ask Coach Harbaugh about what I thought was the great term, long-term understanding and short-term focus. Understanding that it's a long season, that there are 15 games to go, while also completely committing to the focus required to win this game this week, knowing your season doesn't end if you don't win, but still treating it as its own entity. And listen, anytime we're able to get Coach Harbaugh together in these meetings and with our crew, he is amazing to listen to. And you can tell why players want to play for him, and you can tell why he's had the career he's had and the longevity that he's had, because I think he leads in such a pure way. I think he's a coach that leads with his heart. Great acumen, but leads with his heart, and that connects to players.
It's interesting. This fan base is up in
arms.
What is
up
that?
In
arms. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been
locally. He's in a hot seat. McCarthy nationally, there's like a hot seat. It hasn't reached nationally for John, but the fans are definitely angry right now. Yeah,
for sure. As most fan bases would be, Tom, after an 0-2 start. You can also understand, we can all have empathy in terms of what happened in late January last year, when really the blueprint certainly looked like it was the Ravens to lose last year, being that they were the most dominant, particularly down that second half stretch. Did you get any kind of sense that he's feeling this pressure right now, and the fact that this is a pretty pivotal game given what's to come afterwards with Buffalo and Cincinnati looming?
Short answer, no. I think he does subscribe to his own mantra that it is a long-term understanding and a short-term focus. Listen, he ticked off the other games that lie ahead. He understands you guys can't end up in a hole that's too deep to dig out of, but there are other games to go. This is a very, very difficult time in the schedule. And I would pose a question to the fan base, and I understand that this is cold comfort. It's offered purely as a form of context, right? If you don't have a toe on the line and you don't have a face mask call, and somehow you're 2-0, right, which doesn't seem out of the – is it the same team? Is the team wildly, demonstrably, really appreciably different than the team that sits before you at 0-2? I'd ask that for context. I think we're going to find out a lot more in answering that question, 4:25 Eastern on Sunday.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think they just want changes at the offensive line. But you did mention Micah Parsons, and I want to get back to that. Obviously, Max Crosby was on fire against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Chris Jones the week before. What do you see? Do you see the same thing for Micah Parsons, or do you think the Ravens will have an answer?
No, listen, I think we cover the Cowboys often enough to know, Sarah, that when we talk to the teams on the other side, that's where the defensive game plan starts. It starts with that number, that presence, that guy. That's where it begins. And understandably. So the question becomes, in chipping him, in doubling him, in doing everything you can, even as he roams around and he spreads across an entire defensive plan, what's the opportunity cost in what you're dedicating to stop Micah Parsons, if you can even do that? And if you do, what other vulnerabilities are you opening yourself up to? That's right. That's why, Zach, that's why a new DC in this case, that's why you have great players like Roquan who can talk about, hey, from the defensive lens, this is what we're trying. That's what this guy does to hopefully help the offensive plan, those guys on the line, to have a real plan as to what they can do against just an extraordinary player. And that's what Micah is.
He's also very open on his podcast, and he teased the potential game plan for potential spying duties that he'll have from Mike McCarthy to Lamar. So if that ends up happening, get your popcorn ready, of course, and good luck, because that has not worked out well for players in the past. Tom, we know you're up against the clock, so we'd be remiss if you didn't ask you one question about the new booth. And this is Tom's third game, of course. Tom Brady, that is, in the booth with Kevin Burkhardt. What a rock star group you have here. I mean, just 4 pros. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait. I think the kind of speak for Ravens Nation. We're all looking forward to listen to this group, but Tom is understandably so the headliner, and there's such interest level around him. And so, what's it been like as a teammate of his so far through a couple weeks?
Bobby, he's been great. He has been curious and humble and open, and does an incredible job at preparation. And also, he understands that this is new. And while there is blessing in beginning for all of us as we start on any new venture, there's also going to be opportunities to grow and learn. No one is fully formed when they begin to do anything that's worthwhile or challenging. And I think Tom will continue to take steps forward by his own description. I'll tell you this. I think last week there was a lot of offense, right? The Saints were amazing. And I could give you 10 moments where I thought Tom was utterly and exceptional. And I think those are only going to grow as he becomes more familiar with television, as he becomes a person who is so eager and ready to share his lens, the lens of, right, the greatest to ever do it in the biggest sport in our country. He's been an amazing teammate.
Well,
I'm looking forward to hearing him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're always CBS. We haven't been able to hear him yet on Fox, so it's a real treat for us. Tom, what are you kind of predicting this game? Just kind of finish things up. You think the Ravens got it? I mean, both are coming off of tough losses. They both need this badly. How do you see this coming out on the other side?
Sarah, I'm just going to tell you, this is going to sound selfish, okay? We just want close and competitive in the second half. I mean, and that's what we think it will be.
Yeah.
Because we think each side is preparing for a really physical 4-quarter contest. And I don't suggest that in a hollow way. I think one of the things we've heard from the Ravens, your fan base is going to know this, that later in games, the performance hasn't been the same as it's been early in games. And I think that's going to get tested yet again this week against a really quality opponent. Who can put together the complete game and play best when it's late and matters most? We hope that it comes down to the last few drives in a tight game in the 4th quarter.
I'm not sure the fan base is there with you on that.
We've had that twice this year, and both times it worked out poorly. So.
I understand. We have not had it. So selfishly, we have had games that have been well in hand. So we'd like a new experience.
Fair enough. Tom Rinaldi will be on the sideline duties this weekend for Fox Sports, along with Aaron Andrews, and of course, the star-studded booth of Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady. Tom, so gracious of you to spend some time leading into the weekend, and best of luck with your prep. I'm sure you'll be running around. I'm sure this is your time of year, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having the other Tom. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Much more than the other Tom, though. You know that. Thanks, Tom. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Tom Rinaldi, who will be on the call coming up on Sunday. It's a 4:25 kickoff in Dallas, and yes, I'm happy right now.
I know everybody's like, you were almost Sarah level when we had Steve Young on. Not quite that giddy.
Yeah, I've told you this many a time. Athletes just they don't do it for me. Of course, some would.
Yeah.
If we have Michael Jordan on the show, I think we both probably freak out. But there's just something about Tom Rinaldi. Really grew up idolizing the way in which he perfected his craft as a feature storyteller.
Yeah.
And his acumen, his diction, his pace, the way that he speaks with he's just a gracious, gracious man. And he was really, really good to me right when I got let go from radio. So that was pretty cool.